When you hear this, turn the page.
This is TheReadback, and we are back with Kelley's Oprah, a Biography, written or published in 2010. I am sitting outside reading today to take advantage of this beautiful day, the day before spring, or it's today the first day of spring, I'm not sure. But you will hear birds, planes, things like that, because I am outside. So we are on chapter 3 of this book, which is, oh my gosh, like every chapter it's really a page turner, and it's really giving me a lot of insight on Oprah and who she is and how she's getting to where she is today, which are the questions that I had when I first cracked this open, and I am getting the answers. Now, the answers are maybe a little confusing, but they should have called it a revelation, because I'm telling you, if you've been following, and we're just on chapter 3, we have 20 chapters of Oprah and all of her shenanigans. So the first 2 chapters covered the inception of the Oprah Winfrey Show through AM Chicago, which started with her going to Chicago as an adult. Chapter 2 went into her living with her mother and being abused and not being wanted and being discriminated against in her own family, and what, like people say, and things of that nature. And it ended with her being pregnant, giving birth to a baby, which they say died with no record of death. No death certificate, no funeral. They don't know where the baby went, and that's it. That's the way they ended it. Well, that's the way Kitty wrote it. So we're now on chapter 3, and we will see what Kitty has in store for us in this chapter. Chapter 3. Sprinting forward, Oprah blocked out her pregnancy, confident that no one would ever find out. I went back to school and not a soul knew. Nobody, she told the historian Henry Louis Gates Jr. in 2007. Otherwise, I would not have had this life that I've had. Whether or not that belief is correct, Oprah made the clear choice that secrecy was her salvation, and she closed her past even to her closest friends. I dated Oprah for 2.5 years in high school, said Anthony Ote. That's why I was later so stunned to learn that the girl I thought I knew so well had actually had a baby before I even met her. How was she able to suppress it? Because she didn't want you to know. That is a traumatic event. Most people do suppress dramatic events and then go on and act like nothing ever happened. Like, why would she tell you that? So that you could judge her? That's not something that she would want you to know. Even if she had the baby, she probably wouldn't have wanted you to know. Especially if y'all were dating, because then she would know that you knew that, she had taken a roll or two in the hay, and she didn't want to do that with you, or she didn't want everybody to know that she had done it. We never had sex, not even on prom night. See? We agreed when we first started dating as 15-year-olds in our old neighborhood in Nashville that we would never go all the way. It was a matter of our Christian upbringing and our determination to make something of ourselves as adults. See, she didn't want you to know, because she figured if you knew, either your parents were not going to want you to have anything to do with her, or you were going to be pushing up on her to try to have sex, and she didn't want that. In all the time we dated, she never mentioned a single word about any of this to me. She never spoke about her past. Oprah never talked about her mother, and she never told me that she had a brother and a sister. This sounds like what happened to her mother. The same thing. Except, she had to take care of Oprah periodically. But the grandmother took care of Oprah, and Vernetta went on to live her life. And whenever Oprah came around, that's when the problem started. I don't think she wanted her. And if Oprah had had a child, I think the same thing would have happened. The dad, Vernon, would have taken care of their baby. Oprah would have gone on to school. She would have acted like that was her little sister or something. So it would have been just history repeating itself. Her teachers, too, were dumbfounded. I taught her every day at school and traveled with her through the state and around the country to speech tournaments, said Andrea Haynes. And I had no idea of her travail. When I learned that she had had a baby, I felt very sorry that she had come from such a sad place. I can assure you that Oprah did not emit any symptoms of an emotionally disturbed child when I knew her. Lavinia Harrison Butler, her best friend in those days, was not surprised. She recalled Oprah as great fun but very secretive. She had so many secrets, dark secrets. I didn't know what they were, but I knew there were reasons Vernon was so strict, and believe me, he was strict. I wonder if he was strict on that brother. Even in girl talk, Oprah was guarded. I know she seems to be so open with her audiences, but that's just because she's a good actress. I'm not saying she needs to tell everybody everything. Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. Why does she need to tell people all her business? She tells you, just like you tell people, exactly what you want them to know. And if she does not want you to know that, and in her mind it never happened, then why would she keep talking about it? She has to live her life like it never happened. I'm not saying that she needs to tell everybody everything, but she's the one who says she's so open and honest and truthful about her life. Fact is, she only shares her personal stuff when forced to. For instance, she admitted her drug use on the air only when someone was set to tell all in an article, and her pregnancy only when her sister outed her. Okay, well, those are things I wouldn't walk up and say, "Hi, I had a baby at 14 and I'm on drugs." Like, who meets people and tells them that type of thing? So the only time you would tell people those things is if for fear it was coming out and you can get ahead of it, and then you can just say it and then it's over with. But if no one ever says anything, why would you tell? Oprah recalled that pregnancy as the shaming, most embarrassing, horrible thing of her young life. She illustrated the disgrace with a story about a girl in her senior class who was barred from graduation because she had become pregnant. There was this big brouhaha whether she would even be allowed to walk with the rest of the graduating class, and the decision was no. She could not walk with the rest of us. So my entire life would have been different if anyone had known I had had a baby. Entirely different. Now, I didn't go to school in, I guess this is the 70s, but in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was this kind of, well, more so the 90s. It was kind of the same way. If you were pregnant, they did not want to advertise that to all of the girls at the school, even though, they seem to always advertise. They encourage promiscuity in young girls, but not the results of it. So they didn't want you walking around high school pregnant. And they had schools that were just for pregnant girls. Now, I don't know if that was because maybe there was a medical staff, a heightened, more experienced medical staff there to help in case of problems, or if that was just a place they just shuttled you off, or a little bit of both, maybe. Later on in the late 90s, early 2000s, they started opening daycares in high school and having Planned Parenthood clinics there. So it has changed a lot, but whether this is true what Oprah is saying, I don't know, but I could see where they would not celebrate her being pregnant. Yeah, so I don't know if what Oprah is saying is true about this incident, but I could see where she would be afraid and embarrassed. And she was already, it was already a divide between the students. And she was trying to align herself with everyone because she wanted to have the support of everyone. Getting to the place where she wanted to be now, these grounds were her training on how to get everyone on her side, how to be neutral, how to get the support of everyone. So her being pregnant, yeah, she probably wouldn't have been celebrated. She wouldn't have been, class president, prom queen, those type of things. They would have ostracized her, and people's parents would not have wanted their daughters or sons to be friends with her. I can guarantee you that. Her classmates do not recall the story that Oprah tells. See, and I'm reading this for the first time, so we can all have the same first time reactions. So when I'm saying these things, it's not because I have read this already and I know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. And her classmates do not recall the story that Oprah tells. I never heard about anyone being pregnant and not allowed to graduate, said Larry Carpenter, the East alumni representative for the class of 1971. We were a big class, about 300, but that's something that would have been known. Not so, said Cynthia Connor Shelton. I was in Oprah's class at East, and I had a friend who was 7 months pregnant in our senior year, and she graduated with us. Certainly there was a social stigma attached to unwed pregnancy, but not enough to deny a girl graduation. Whether or not a pregnant student was barred from walking with the class at East Nashville High, Oprah's story reflects her own fear about her situation, which she knew could have drastically altered the life she wanted. See? So the classmates say it didn't happen. But the classmates didn't know that Oprah had had a baby. So, clearly they don't know everything about what's going on. So she wrapped herself in secrecy as a protective coating. For a church-going child, there were 10 commandments to live by, but no stone tablets about how to bury the past. Whether her pregnancy was the result of a sexual molestation or promiscuity, it was something she felt she needed to hide. The power of her denial through the years became evident when she entered the Miss Black Nashville contest in 1972 and signed an affidavit swearing she had never conceived a child. During a 1986 Oprah show on racism, a white man said to her, "You black people took over Chicago. In 20 years, Chicago became 80% black, so you have to be breeding." Oprah said, "I haven't bred one person." And in 1994, when she hosted a show titled Is There Life After High School, she asked a panel of 5 former classmates from East to relate the most humiliating moment from their high school years. Each gave an example of adolescent mortification, which made Oprah laugh. "I did not have any embarrassing moments in high school," she said. "Nothing humiliating." Yeah, why would she tell you? Why would she tell you any of those things? And y'all are nitpicking Oprah now. She had a show and she said this and she didn't tell us that, and come on. After the pregnancy, Vernon had tightened the reins on his wild runaway horse and led her back to the stable where, slightly tamed but still spirited, she started to run for the roses. "I became the high school state champion in speaking and winning drama contests, trying to prove myself, prove that I was a good girl," she said. I wonder where her grandmother was. Did we say that her grandmother had passed away yet? I wonder if she was around to see all of this since she taught her how to read and things like that. She would have been proud. A week after giving birth and almost a month after her baby died, Oprah pulled on her knee-highs, ribboned her hair into 2 ponytails, and returned to East Nashville High, where she began to reinvent herself. Okay, wait a minute. A week after giving birth and almost a month before her baby died, that's a little confusing. But if she was gone for a month, when did she have this baby? Was it during the summer? Like, if she was gone for a month, how come the kids didn't know something was going on? Maybe it was when school was out. But she did say that she was sitting in the back of the class with the coat on. Who knows? This book is so backwards and forwards, and it's so much stuff going on. Gone was the sullen student with swollen ankles, crouched in the back row wearing a baggy sweater. In her place was a bright-eyed, energetic sophomore with relentless confidence who demanded to be recognized beyond the confines of her school and her church. See, wasn't she? I don't know. Andrea Haynes, who taught Oprah speech drama and English at East, recalled their meeting in the spring of 1969. I still remember her bounding into my classroom saying, "Are you Miss Haynes? Well, I'm Oprah Gail Winfrey." She later announced that she was going to be an actress, a movie star. She did not say that she wanted to be a movie star. She declared firmly she was going to be a movie star. "I've got to change my name," she told Miss Haynes. "Nobody has a name like Oprah. I would go as Gail. I've already told my family to call me Gail." That's funny that I've never met anybody else named Oprah. Have any of you known anyone else named Oprah before she got famous and maybe people named their children after her? I've never met an Oprah. So, yeah, that's good that she kept the name. But it is funny that she has a best friend named Gail. I wonder if she was ever jealous of Gail. I wonder. And maybe that's why she attached herself to her. I don't know. But Vernon says that she was, a little fast. I don't know if that's what he meant. Maybe he just called her those names because she had spoken to him that way. He made it seem like she was a little fast girl. The teacher immediately saw a student with marquee ambitions. "You stick with Oprah," she said. "It's a unique name and you have a unique talent." On her own, Oprah started making a name for herself in the black churches around Nashville after Miss Haynes introduced her to readings from God's Trombone's 8 Negro Sermons in Verse by James Weldon Johnson. "I used to do them for churches all over the city," said Oprah. "You sort of get known for that." See, this is the stepping stones of getting her to where she needed to be. Like I said, when I first started reading this, I believe Oprah aligned herself with people for a reason, which most young people really don't do, but she did. So good for her. But it also makes you expendable. So once she's done with you and you've served your purpose, then she can kick you to the curb. Gary Holt, the former student body president of East, remembered her performing at the Eastland Baptist Church on Gallatin Road. She did a reading from a Negro spiritual in which she was the preacher. She delivered a sermon with that great big voice of hers, and she was wonderful. Those performances earned Oprah a trip to Los Angeles to speak to other church groups. During that time, she toured Hollywood's Walk of Fame in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater, which further fired her fantasies. When she came back, she said, "Daddy, I got down on my knees there and ran my hand along all of those stars on the street, and I said to myself, one day I'm going to put my own star among these stars," said Vernon. "That was the foreshadowing I had that she would one day be famous." Oprah did not hide her ambitions. In junior high in Milwaukee, when she filled out one of those "Where will I be in 20 years" forms, she checked famous. She said, "I always knew I'd do great things in my life. I just didn't know what." She knew what she wanted very early in life, said Anthony O'Tay. She said she wanted to be a movie star and she was willing to put aside a lot of things. She was driven even back then, said Gary Holt, who considered Oprah an only child who was always well dressed to be one of the more privileged in their class. Ironically, at East High, she looked like one of the students she used to envy at Nicollet. "You've got to understand that East was lower middle class," he said. "Most of us, black and white, were poor kids whose parents, if they worked at all, had blue-collar jobs. Vernon Winfrey had his own business. Being a barber is a good cash business. And he also owned his own house, so he was definitely middle class to us." Having had a lifetime of bad jobs, low-paying jobs, Vernon emphasized to Oprah the need for getting an education. She complained sometimes about other children dressing better than she dressed, he said, and I said to her, "You get something up here," he tapped his head, "and you can dress like you want to in days to come." Oprah was trying to dress for the life that she wanted. Isn't that what people tell you to do? Dress for the life that you want? At school, Oprah joined the National Forensic League and worked closely with Miss Haynes on dramatic interpretations to prepare for competitions. The goal was to win the Tennessee State Forensic Tournament and qualify for the Nationals. By her junior year, she was the school's best entry. Again, enacting the role of the preacher, who tells the story of the apocalypse from God's trombones, she won the first place dramatics trophy on March 21st, 1970. "It's like winning an Academy Award," she told her school newspaper. "I prayed before I competed and said, 'Now, God, you just help me tell them about this, the judgment day. They need to know about the judgment. So help me tell them.' Then, as she has seen Oscar winners do on television, she said, 'I want to thank God, Miss Haynes, and Lana Lott, also Paula Stewart, for telling me she wouldn't speak to me anymore if I didn't win.'" After winning at the state level, Oprah went to the Nationals in Overland, Kansas, but she was eliminated before the quarterfinals. See, she's learning. She's learning how to be who it is that she wants to be. This is the best performance that she has ever given, was when she was young. That same year, she was one of 12 finalists sponsored by the Black Elks Club of Nashville, a service organization formerly known as the Improved Benevolent Protective Order of Elks of the World. That is a mouthful. Let me say that again. The Improved Benevolent Protective Order of Elks of the World. I can't remember what I said, but my topic for the 2.5-minute speech was the Negro, the Constitution, and the United States. I delivered it in front of 10,000 people in Philadelphia, and I felt really comfortable up there. I had always worried whether my slip was hanging down whenever I got up to speak, but in front of 10,000 people, you realize nobody can see if it's hanging down. You can't get scared when it's a sea of people everywhere you look. Oprah won the competition at the 71st Grand Lodge Convention, which honored Mayor Charles Evers of Fayette, Mississippi, with its highest award. The mayor was the older brother of Medgar Evers, the civil rights worker murdered in 1963 by a white supremacist. While the Black Elks were meeting in Philadelphia, the White Elks met in San Francisco and voted to keep their whites-only membership requirement. They maintained that God did not make a single black man acceptable to their brotherhood. At the time, a spokesman for the White Elks said their decision, barred to the press, had been amicable and in the spirit of brotherly love. The next year, Oprah competed in the Tennessee State Forensic Tournament, again won first place, and went to the 1971 Nationals at Stanford University in Palo Alto, California. "I don't recall any other black student at the Nationals that year," said Andrea Haynes. And there certainly weren't any among the finalists. Oprah was the only one. She performed and won almost every single day of that week, ending up in the top 5. What Oprah realized really is that they were in competition with her. She was not in competition with them. During a 5-hour break between presentations, Oprah went shopping in San Francisco and bought a silk scarf for her teacher, who recalled the incident with delight. She was so impressed that she had paid $15 for that scarf, and so impressed that she had bought it at Saks Fifth Avenue. The scarf was a splurge for a 17-year-old girl from Nashville, Tennessee, who in 1971 spent 72 cents for 2 pieces of Mini Pearl fried chicken. Mini Pearl? Is that the lady from Hee Haw? She had a chicken joint? I wonder if it was good. It's making me hungry. Losing the national tournament disappointed Oprah, who had presented a stirring reading from Margaret Walker's novel Jubilee, the black version of Gone with the Wind, in which a female slave named Viree is doused with urine by the slave master's wife, who is jealous of her beauty. Viry is later whipped to a bloody pulp while trying to escape. In retrospect, it was a bold selection putting the slave experience in the faces of whites, but Oprah, who was not an activist in any way, captured the humanity of the character and presented her without anger or bitterness, said Miss Haynes. Dressed in a long cotton skirt and an old shawl with a white knit hairnet covering her long black hair, Oprah delivered her oration to her classmates before the state tournament. I will never forget the force of energy when she walked to the front of the room, already in character, her eyes sweeping across the room, making eye contact with as many of her fellow students as possible, recalled classmate Sylvia Watts Bland more than 35 years later. Without much ado, she launched into a powerful performance, relating the first-person story of a female slave as she was examined, offered but not sold, on the block, eventually tied to a post and whipped for having too much spirit and had salt rubbed into her wounds. I wasn't the only one that morning with tears in my eyes as the class was transported back 110 years to a horrifying time when white people presumed to own black people in this very nation, in this very state. I have always been struck with the way she, rather than lashing out in personal anger, chose to mirror back to us the legacy of this crime against humanity. Over the years, as Oprah went about building her career in public life, I thought back many times on the heart-wrenching reality conveyed by her performance. We knew she was special even back then. Oprah was an actress. Oprah done got over on them. She started getting over in high school. So I don't feel so bad because she's had all these years to practice on how to bamboozle everybody. When the Civil Rights Act had mandated integration in public schools and public facilities, the social line separating blacks and whites remained firmly in place in Nashville in 1970. We were all friends during the day, but you didn't do anything with them, the black kids, after school, said Larry Carpenter. Oprah tried to socialize with the whites, and she was chastised for it. The black kids felt she dealt with the other race too much. That's when I was first called an Oreo, black on the outside, white on the inside, Oprah recalled. I crossed the lines and sat with the whites in the cafeteria. In high school, I was a teacher's pet, which created other problems. I never spoke in dialect. I'm not sure why. Perhaps I was ashamed. And I was attacked for talking proper like white folks, for selling out. As a teenager, Oprah was embarrassed by the images of Africans she saw on television and in films. I was ashamed if anybody asked, "You from Africa?" in the school. What? I didn't want anybody to talk about it. And if it was ever discussed in any classroom I was in, it was always about the pygmies and the primitive and barbarian behavior of Africans. I remember wanting to get over that period really quickly. The bare-breasted National Geographic pictures, I was embarrassed by all of it. See, I told you, people didn't walk around with their clothes, with no clothes on. If you came across anything like that, it was a National Geographic special or a magazine or something like that on PBS. Being in the minority, the black students at East strengthened their numbers by voting in a block, especially for student body offices and superlatives, the prize designations of most popular, most handsome, most talented, most likely to succeed, most bashful, etc. They banded together, nominated one person, and voted only for that person, while the white students with several nominees inevitably split their vote, which usually enabled the black candidate to win. That's why my getting elected student body president was considered such an upset, recalled Gary Holt. I was one of two whites running against one black, and I couldn't have won without black support. I wonder if the other black was Oprah and they just didn't want her to win. It can go both ways. They can rally behind you or rally to upset you. At the same time, Oprah was the only black student running for vice president. Her campaign picture carried the slogan, "Put a little color in your life. Vote for the grand old Oprah." Well, she was in Nashville, wasn't she? The grand old Opry, the grand old Oprah. She held her birthday party in the school gymnasium and promised better food in the cafeteria and a live band, half black, half white, at the prom instead of records. She, too, was elected because she pulled black as well as white votes. See, I told you, Oprah was in there trying to get everybody on her side, which was smart, so that she could get everybody. That's double the support. She also won one of the coveted superlatives because, according to Cynthia Connor Shelton, she was bold enough to nominate herself. That speaks to her self-confidence and her determination to be recognized, said her classmate. Many years later, a member of the Black nominating group confirmed that Oprah had indeed nominated herself Most Popular Girl and had won because of the all-black vote. Vernon Winfrey was not impressed by her victory. Any dog in the street can be popular, he said. Who was voted most likely to succeed? He had not encouraged Oprah to run for Miss East Nashville High or Miss Wool, as he was unsympathetic when she lost both contests. He didn't care that she wasn't homecoming queen, tulip queen, prom queen, or even a cheerleader. He was disappointed that she was not in the National Achievement Scholarship Program for outstanding Negro students, because he wanted her to graduate as valedictorian, but he settled for the good grades that would put her into the National Honor Society. Tapping her on the head, he said, "Get something up there that no one can take away from you." From the beginning, he and Zelma insisted she go to the library once a week, choose a book, and write a book report for them, which exposed Oprah to the lives of Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, and Fannie Lou Hamer, and to the poetry of Langston Hughes and Maya Angelou. "Not only did I have homework from school, but homework at home," said Oprah. "Plus, I was only allowed an hour today to watch television, and that hour was always before Leave It to Beaver came on. I hated that." We had homework at home, too. My family was full of educators, so we had homework at home, too, and that was... And it seemed like we would have to do it in front of the window that faced the outside, where we could see the rest of the kids playing. And we would be either the piano or piano lessons, guitar lessons, or handwriting. Right in front of the window, we can watch everybody else outside having fun. We eventually got to go outside, but, it just seems like forever when you're not included because you're inside. She complained bitterly and consistently about her father's strictness. "Vernon was a tough old bird," said Gary Holt, "and he made sure he knew where she was every minute of the day. There was not much socializing between the races in those days, but if it had been acceptable, Oprah and I might have gotten together. We were great friends and shared the same strong Christian beliefs then." Oprah wrote in Holt's yearbook, "You have shown me more by your actions, by the way you live from day to day, that there is truly only one way, Jesus Christ. And that without him taking control, without him running the whole show, life is just an endless go-round with no meaning." That's deep for a high school student to write in the yearbook. We just used to say, "Hey, Kit, keep in touch. You were a cool girl that I met in whatever. Stay beautiful, be cool, Kit," and you leave your phone number. This is very insightful. Interracial dating was not really tolerated when we were in high school, Holt said, but Oprah wanted to pull a fast one on Vernon, so she invited me to her house and made him think I was her date. Vernon was stunned when he opened the door and saw me standing there. He was cordial, but obviously concerned about a white boy calling on his daughter. It was like, guess who's coming to dinner, and I was Sidney Poitier. Oprah made him sweat for a while, then she started laughing and told him we were working on plans for the prom. Vernon gonna get Oprah with all of this little slick stuff that she's doing. Oprah and her black friends teased their white speech teacher in the same way. If we were in a department store or a restaurant, they would yell at me from across the room, "Hey mama, come over here. Come on over here." Then they'd roar with laughter when all the white people turned and saw that I was their mama. Miss Haynes frequently drove her forensic students to tournaments in the state in her little red Mustang. Once, to get an early morning start, she suggested Oprah spend the night and share a bedroom with her younger sister who was visiting. My sister was coming out of the shower and Oprah was talking on the phone to one of her friends. "Yeah, she's in the shower right now," she said. "You know how these white girls love to wash their hair all the time, washing their hair." The struggle for civil rights had hit Nashville hard in the 1960s with boycotts, sit-ins, protests, demonstrations, and marches, all part of the racial turbulence rumbling across the South in those years. By the time Oprah was in high school, affirmative action was taking hold to give blacks, so long denied, a lift toward equal opportunity. As the first black student body officer at East and someone known in all the black churches of Nashville, Oprah was selected as one of the delegates to the 1971 White House Conference on Children and Youth. The director, Stephen Hess, had promised an honest cross-section of American youth, not just white middle-class student activists. He said the 14 to 24-year age group would reflect the demographics of the country. In the end, minorities who comprised 30% of the delegates were intentionally overrepresented so as not to smack of tokenism. In later years, Oprah would say that she was the only student selected from my state, but her slight exaggeration does not diminish the honor. She attended the conference in Estes Park, Colorado, with 1,000 delegates, most of whom were clean, crew-cut wearing Christians. James S. Cunin, author of The Strawberry Statement, also attended. "I didn't think they would find this many straight kids in America," he said. As traditional as the young delegates looked, their recommendations from the conference were anything but conventional. For 5 hours in one session, some of the crew cuts sat in the front rows openly smoking pot as their drug task force made its report on legalizing marijuana. The conference attendees denounced the invasions of Cambodia, opposed the war in Vietnam, supported a withdrawal of U.S. troops by year's end, and asked for an end to the draft. They're still talking about legalizing marijuana and war. How far have we really come? They proposed a guaranteed income of $6,500 for a family of 4, stipulated that 1/4 of the national budget be allocated for education, condemned slavery and its evil legacy as the country's darkest blemish, and asked President Richard Nixon to proclaim racism the cancer of American society. Despite the anti-establishment resolutions of her delegation, Oprah did not return home a political activist. Quite the contrary. The only march she ever took part in, said her boyfriend, Anthony Ote, was the March of Dimes. Anthony got jokes. That march led Oprah to WVOL, the black radio station in Nashville, to look for sponsorship. She explained that she walked so many miles and I would have to pay for the number of miles she walked, said John Heidelberg, one of the disc jockeys who later became president and owner of the station. "I said, sure, I'll do it." Now, I don't know if she knew that he was going to be the eventual president and owner of the station, but it seems that she aligns herself with people who can get her where she needed to go. And in light of affirmative action, he probably used her too. So they used each other. Maybe him finding her helped elevate him. And all these things were stepping stones as far as her going to all the churches. She was well known around the state. She was very, articulate. Everyone that knew her knew that she represented everyone very well. So she represented herself very well. So all of these are stepping stones to get to where she needed to be. A few weeks later, Oprah returned to collect the money. "I admired her voice," he recalled. "She was very articulate. Her grammar was good. I'm from outside the boondocks of Mississippi. The concept and image that people get of blacks living in the South can sometimes be very negative. When I heard Oprah, I thought, hey, here's a young lady who's going places. Well, clearly he had the same image until he heard her speak. He asked if she would be willing to make a tape. He took her into the newsroom, ripped some copy off the wire, and listened to her read in a rich, deep, clear voice without a drawl or dialect. He promised to give the tape to the station manager. For years, it was hard for women to get into radio, he said, but when the FCC required radio stations to begin affirmative action programs, things began to change. Station managers hired them because they needed a minority. They felt like, well, we've got to protect our license, so we'll hire some females. We were a training ground for a lot of young blacks who otherwise wouldn't have had a chance to make it in radio. Heidelberg soon convinced WVOL management to take a chance on the 17-year-old and give her on-the-job training. Oprah knew she had something on the ball, he said. She didn't feel intimidated or threatened by anything. Nothing bothered her. Yeah, it shouldn't. All the stuff she's been through. And she was on a course. I guess the turning point was after the baby, and she got away from her mother, and the pregnancy happened after that, supposedly, but she seems to be very focused and determined. And she talks about racism and things like that. So I don't see where she would be afraid. This is nothing compared to, some of the things that she probably had endured. Shortly after Oprah started working part-time, the station manager's house burned down, and the fire department responded so quickly that the manager decided the radio station would participate in the upcoming fire prevention contest. Oh, I wonder if the house burned down because she worked there. I don't know. Each year, several Nashville businesses selected a candidate, usually a white teenage girl with red hair, to represent them in the contest. Now, subliminals, you're going to get a redhead to represent the Miss Fire Prevention. WVOL, whose call sign derives from Tennessee being known as the volunteer state, volunteered Oprah. I was the Negro surprise of the day, she said. You were not a surprise, little do you know. Miss Fire Prevention was a big deal back then, said Nancy Solinsky, who held the title in 1970. It was not a beauty contest. The prize was based on your ability to speak, your poise, and your presentation, because your main responsibility was to go around to school assemblies and talk about the importance of obeying fire safety rules. Up to 1971, all the winners had been white, but that year, Oprah was one of the 15 contestants. She was the only black, but she never blinked because she had it all and she knew it. She was absolutely colorblind to herself. The judges were all white old men, and when she walked out to present her piece, you could almost see them thinking, what does she think she's doing here? See, Oprah knew that they were in competition with her. She was not in competition with them. And I believe her and the station knew what they were doing in the era of affirmative action. So she had to win. But she should have won, maybe. I mean, it wasn't like she was just an African-American woman, so they just chose her because of that. I mean, she actually deserved to win. She exhibited what it is that they wanted besides the red hair. The judges asked the contestants what they wanted to do with their lives. Oprah said, I believe in truth and I want to perpetuate truth. So I want to be a journalist like Barbara Walters. Next, they asked what the contestants would do if given $1 million. Most said they would give it to charity, help the poor, or buy their parents a new house. Not Oprah. Lord, you just watch me, she said, lifting her eyes to heaven. If I had $1 million, I would be a spending fool. I'm not quite sure what I would spend it on, but I would spend. Just be a spending fool. Everybody laughed, said Nancy Solinsky, and I was pleased, although frankly surprised that she won. I put the crown on her head, So grateful that the judges had gotten over their own prejudices, it was time. I don't think that's what it was, but I think they had to vote for her. But they couldn't deny her either. And also, I don't think that this was, spontaneous. That they knew what questions. If the station was sponsoring the event, why are you surprised that the person that they chose to represent them won? They probably went over everything. This is a broadcast channel. They're used to rehearsing and putting forth an image. So none of this is surprising. John Heidelberg had accompanied Oprah to the event. I'm not surprised. The crowd was just overwhelmed with her, and you could see that she was just loving every minute of it. He remembered how thrilled she was to have newspaper photographers rushing to take her picture. "Here I am," she'd yell. Oprah loved the camera. "Where's the camera? Here I am. Come see me." She loved the limelight. He laughed as he recalled her reactions. She thought, "This is great. Hey, I love this. This is going places." And I would not put it past him to tell her, "You do this, I'll get this for you," which seems to be the story of the come up. You do this, you align with me, I'll get you where you need to go. So he probably told her, you win this, kid, you're going to be famous in the town. They're going to take pictures of you, whatever this misfire prevention entails. You'll go around and speak to people. People will know you. They'll be excited when you come around. And that's what happened. In the era of affirmative action, I'm surprised that she was the only one. Like, why didn't the other stations take advantage of that? That seems weird to me. It seems like everybody was in cahoots. A few weeks after riding atop a parade float as Miss Fire Prevention, Oprah walked with the class of 1971 to receive her diploma and graduate. 15 years later, East Nashville High School graduated its last class and became East Literature Magnet School. Even with the school doors closed, many from the class wanted to stay connected, but Oprah never looked back. Yeah, she used y'all. She used y'all for this story so that she could say, "I won this, I did this in school, I went to all of these pageants and all these contests and won all these awards. You all were mean to me," whatever. That's where she learned to be everybody's friend to get what she wanted. And after she got it, she throws you to the side. "Not even to contribute a brick," said Larry Carpenter at the East Alumni House as he walked up the path paved with legacy bricks carrying the names of former students and the years in which they graduated. The bricks, which cost $50, financed scholarships for poor children in Nashville. As of 2008, there was no brick in the name of the school's most famous graduate. "I have written Oprah many times in hopes that she might want to contribute to our scholarship fund, but I never received a reply." The president of East Nashville High Alumni Association, Patsy Rainey Klein, also tried to solicit Oprah's support for the school scholarship program, but to no avail. She has not shown any interest in any activity of the school since she left Nashville. She seems so interested in underprivileged children and different nationalities of Black children, and that situation certainly is prevalent at East High. But, well, see, Oprah, y'all talked about, not really liking her. She was playing both sides. She wasn't Black enough to hang with the Black kids. She was too Black to hang with the white kids. Y'all didn't hang out after school. So maybe it wasn't as fun as she made it to be. Obviously, she's an actress. Y'all said it. They said it. And she bamboozled y'all, just like she bamboozled all the rest of us. She learned y'all helped. It's y'all fault. Y'all helped create this monster. She used you all. She used you all to create this story. After the pregnancy. She wanted to recreate herself, and she did exactly what she needed to do to get all of these things to create this story, and you all were just part of it. And after she graduated, she didn't need you anymore. And it probably wasn't the big fun that you all thought that it was. That's our actress Oprah that we don't see on the screen. That's the Oprah we need to see. She probably would have won all kind of awards if she would have kept this up. Considering the millions of dollars Oprah would later give to charity, Larry Carpenter and Patsy Rain Klein cannot be faulted for thinking her exclusion of East Side is deliberate. Lavinia Harrison Butler felt Oprah ignored her high school in Nashville because of painful memories. It's all part of her secretive past, she said. It's not really secretive, it's just her business. Like, why does it have to be a secret if she don't want to tell you? That's her business. That is on her if she wants to share that with you. Did you tell her everything that goes on in your life? No. I mean, I don't know. You can argue the fact that you're not out here promoting telling the truth, but I mean, she doesn't have to tell you everything. She tells you what she wants you to know, and it's not a secret or a lie. It's just, she just omitted that. That's all. And I guess maybe when it came out, she had to say something, but if no one had ever said anything, no one would ever know. So if she just started telling you stuff, why would you do that? Why would you just openly start telling people your business when it's not relevant for the time or when it's none of their business? I don't blame Oprah Gale, OG, for keeping her business her business. People now need to do that. They tell everybody all of their business. Yet when the class of 1971 decided to have a reunion in 1994, they again contacted Oprah, and this time she responded by saying that she'd like to have the reunion on her television show. And y'all fell for it, and she used y'all once again. Watch. We spent weeks getting all of the names and addresses of everyone for her producers, Lavinia said. It was a lot of work, but we thought it was a great way to bring everyone together. Unfortunately, it didn't quite happen that way. Yeah, because this is on her terms. She got y'all on her stage where she's in control, not at the school where everybody else seemed to be in control. The promised reunion for the class resulted in a show more focused on the host than on her classmates. It's her show. Oprah invited only a few to appear, plus her favorite teacher, Andrea Haynes. I felt taken advantage of, used, really, when I got to Chicago and realized that the show wasn't going to be about the reunion that was promised, recalled Gary Holt. Welcome to Hollywood, y'all. She probably didn't know that she was going to end up having to do all of this stuff that we see in the press now back then. When Oprah introduced her former student body president as a computer science teacher, she said, "I thought you'd be president of a company or something." When he related his story about getting the wooden paddle his senior year for having left the grounds during school hours, she was astounded. I wonder if she was as just as astounded as he was when he found out all that stuff about her. "How could you be paddled? You were the student body president." "Rules are rules, Oprah," he said, "for everyone." Before taping the show, he had seen her in the hall, surrounded by her coterie of hairstylists, makeup men, and producers. "I gave her a big hug and said, 'Hun, why are you doing all of this?' She said, 'Because I want to bring the truth to the world.'" See, here we go, Oprah. Just stop saying it, because then people are going to hold you to that. Just don't say it. He handed her his 1971 yearbook, which she had first signed when they were seniors. Next to that entry, which said in part, "I want you to know that in a very special way, I love you," she now wrote, "Gary, 22 years later, God is still king. Thank you for what you've done and continue to do to live well, Oprah." How generic. He didn't know what she meant. Possibly it's just a safe statement that she or her staff was coined for the general public. During one segment of that show, Oprah introduced a man who had written a book about the difficulty of fulfilling high school achievements. He said, "To be a high school hero is the biggest thing in life. It's hard to equal that kind of esteem later on." Well, after you leave high school, I don't think any of that matters. Like, you could be the man or the girl in high school, but after you leave, like, who cares? Aside from a cardiac surgeon, Andre Churchwell, who graduated from East in 1971, Oprah seemed to be the only one sitting on stage who had exceeded the promise of high school potential. At the end of the show, she asked her classmates how they looked back on their high school years. She responded with warmth and sentiment, saying those years were a valuable proving ground and a time when they felt they had been a family. Each responded with warmth and sentiment, saying those years were a valuable proving ground and a time when they felt they had been family. Oprah looked amused. Standing in her own spotlight, finally thin and glamorous at the age of 40, she was anything but nostalgic. Boy, I didn't feel it was a family, she said. I felt like it was just a phase. I moved on. See, I told you they thought it was great. Oprah didn't think so. So for her to graduate and leave was a stepping stone, or which she said was a phase, to the next chapter. She used you all, and y'all fell for the shit again, and came to the show, and she gloated. But you all used her too, because you were going to be on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and you were going to go back and be able to brag about having gone to school and knowing Oprah Winfrey. And she knew that. So she got y'all on here and did what she wanted to do on her show, because she was in control. But this is the end of chapter 3. So this just furthers my belief that she aligns herself, whether intentionally or not, with people, places, things that can elevate her to the next level, which is like amazing for someone her age. If everyone was that focused then, and I'm sure you know some people who were focused and now you see them and they are successful, or what society perceives successful. But here she learned to use people. She learned to make people admire her. She learned to amaze people. She learned to do things to manipulate, basically. So now when you see her do these things on her show, she had been doing this since she was a kid. And it's y'all fault at Eastside for allowing all this stuff to happen. Had y'all checked Oprah at Eastside, we would not be having this book. She would have probably been famous, but maybe, she would have had a different attitude or something. So I am blaming the class of, what was it, 1971? Yes, the class of 1971. This is all your fault. But anyway, that was chapter 3. What do you think? It was a short one, but what do you think about everything so far? After the baby, she just completely did an about face. And maybe that was the end of all of that. She had moved away from her mother. She had gone to live with Vernon, which we're going to call her father, even though he says that he's not her birth father. They look alike. So, that's another, who else? I don't know. But he took her under his wing and he took responsibility for her. So that's more than some real fathers, some biological fathers do. So we can call him her father. I don't think that's wrong in doing that. But she had been through all of the shifting around and the racism, or her perceived racism, her mother's disconnect, and the prostitution, which I don't know if we can technically say prostitution. I mean, I guess technically having sex for money is prostitution. So her being promiscuous is the way she says it, and running away and, all of these things. And she completely removed herself from that person. She turned into a whole nother person, which I understand why she didn't tell you all those things. Because how would you have looked at her then if she had told you? I was selling ass. I ran away. I begged for money. I was in the hotel drinking and all these things. How would you have wanted to be her friend? Would your parents want you to hang out with somebody like her? Would you have wanted her to represent you in any shape, form, or fashion? No. So she just reinvented herself. And it seems that she has done that over and over to get what she wants. Because even with the first AM Chicago Oprah Winfrey show, that was like the gossip rags. Later, when the Oprah Winfrey show happened, it was totally different. So she knows how to reinvent herself. She knows how to create a narrative. And she's been doing this since a child, which maybe her abuse taught her how to mask and how to forget and start over. And the family that allowed the abuse, that didn't believe her, told her to be quiet, however that worked out. She grew up learning to be quiet and start over. It didn't happen. You're going to be this different person. That didn't happen to you. Forget it. Come on, let's do this. And that's the way that she's been operating ever since. So that is the end of chapter 3. We will see you on the next episode for chapter 4 on The Readback. Oprah is a mess.